11-22. And here's another thing. Would a non-bowl season be acceptable for Baylor football?
I don't think so.
Depends on why they didn't go to a bowl game. Did they not go to a bowl game because somebody got hurt that was highly important? Did they not go to a bowl game because COVID outbreak? Did they not, go to a bowl game because of just some other thing that occurred? Somebody else just happened to be way better than we expected. There's things that can happen that are really just out of your control. But as far as in their control, if they don't make a bowl game, no, that's a massive disappointment. I mean, we're talking 6 wins, and I know that last year was just 2. They also played 3 less games. So you would have thought that they'd probably win about 4 or 5 last year if they played their non-conference schedule, right? So, asking for really 1 to 2 more wins when you've had now a full year of all the things that we talked about at length last year of not having, you've had all that now. You've addressed your holes with the transfer portal. Like, if you don't have a team ready to go out and win a bowl game right now, then, I think that would be a massive disappointment. So if you don't make it, I think the only reason should be that, there was a rash of injuries to, like, star player after star player. A COVID outbreak made you, lose some guys for a couple of games perhaps, along those lines. But as far as just execution, I don't see any reason why they should not win 6 games.
All right, and I agree with that. I was on Big 12 Radio Network earlier today with Ari and also Dave Archer, the former Iowa State quarterback, and they asked me about that lower level to the ceiling, and I think that clump is 5 to 7, 5 to 8 maybe at the most. I think 8's the highest ceiling I can see. I know that if you're a real positive, over-aggressive, and maybe just real confident that you feel like, well, wait a minute. I feel like this is more like 2018's team in coming off especially the disaster of 1-11 or last year at 2-7. 5 to me would be, man, if you win 5, that's still a disappointment. To me, anything over 6 or 7 would be gravy, would be icing, would be whatever you want to talk about on top of whatever it is.
Well, I remember when I was on the Big 12 radio, and they didn't say anything about my response. They asked how many games I thought Baylor was going to win, and I said 7, I think, and then it was just like silence.
That's the same thing that happened to me today. Yeah.
And, I don't know what is hard to grasp here. I don't know why people outside of Waco are having a hard time grasping why Baylor might be pretty good. Oh, I don't know, because Terrell Bernard's healthy, and they had a pretty good defense last year, and pretty much every single player – literally every single player is back from that defense, and a year under Aranda and spring ball with Aranda. So defensively, they should be way better. They're also loaded with upperclassmen in the secondary, at linebacker, and up front, not so much. That's a question mark, but everybody has a question mark. So their question mark on defense is, can they be good enough up front? That's literally it. That's their only question on defense. Offensively, I understand why people are a little hesitant because of what they saw last year. But Larry Fedora's not here anymore. They have completely changed over everything. Charlie Brewer's not here anymore. It's not going to be a repeat of the exact same offense that we saw last year that basically walked out there, ran 3 plays that gained 4 yards, and then walked back and let the defense play for 70 minutes. So I don't know. I think people are a little slow on the come up with Baylor, and I get not buying in and not thinking – I can totally see the argument against them being a bowl team and thinking that that's ridiculous. But I just think that people are sleeping on them a little bit.
Well, the offense last year had an absolute failing grade.
Absolute
failing grade.
I agree.
So the defense, though, if you were going to give them a report card, special teams was average. The defense was good, an above average. So they had a B-plus defense to maybe an A- at times last year. And then if you throw in – an F- minus offense that they had. So if you take the F- and get it to a C-, this is a team that's going to win more games. So it's not like you're trying to ask them to go from what they are now to 2014. That's not what you're asking. You're asking this team to get to a bowl game and win some of the games. Again, Iowa State, West Virginia, TCU, and Texas could have been wins, save not for one terrible quarter in all of them. So if you can take out one terrible quarter and take that terrible to just, then you're probably going to win more games. And so it's not outside the realm of the possibility for 7 wins.
Here's the thing, too. They also changed strength and conditioning, and they were not the most physical team last year. They looked like a team that was, looked like they had come out of COVID protocol half the time. They did not look nearly like the team that was just physically nasty the year prior with Matt Rule and company, that they had built that up. And we know that the groundwork was laid in strength and conditioning for what Matt Rule and them did, because then they went out and they just physically whipped people. And there was not a bunch of physically whipping guys out there for Baylor last year. It was the reverse. And another thing would be, so that's going to be better. That's going to automatically be better because it means all the reviews that we've gotten and everything like that. So they're going to be a tougher team. They're going to be a stronger team. They're going to be a faster team. They're going to be a more mature team. They also know their head coach now, actually know their coaching staff, and have been around them in close proximity. That was something that was missing last year when there wasn't a lot of other coaching changeover in the Big 12. And let's also add in that the defense was good, but it wasn't great. Like, it wasn't by any means like dominating or along those lines. It was really good. It kept them in games, but it was not like still good enough to win them games, right? The defense should be better. The defense should so across the board, there's nothing that should be any worse than it was last year. Not a single thing should be any worse. Every single thing on this football team should be at least a little bit to a lot better. And how that doesn't translate, I don't know, because it makes perfect sense to me that they're going to be a better team.
It doesn't always mean you're going to be better. That you can actually be just as bad. It's like when you hear about the Cowboys defense, they have to be better. Well, not necessarily. No. But the Baylor offense, to me, has to be. It's just because of that's what God created the earth to be. We have to be better. It's like that has to happen. Well, and if it doesn't, then I don't even know what to say.
I would think they would be better just on the simple fact that they never once, and this cannot be overstated. I don't think they ever once last year had every single offensive lineman available. And that's not just saying. I'm not saying that those guys are all good, but they're better than they were able to play last year.
Right.
And they had, as has been well documented, Baylor football had more COVID problems than maybe anybody in the Big 12, and it started with the offensive line, which was their weakest position to go in with. And look, we've heard Craig talk about, COVID affects everybody kind of differently. Some people get, Armstrong couldn't taste anything for a couple of weeks. And, Craig had massive fatigue for time after that. Well, if your offensive linemen, say 4 of the best ones are still dealing with fatigue down the line, I don't think fatigue is a good thing to go into a game with, even if you're not spitting out COVID positives anymore. You're still fatigued. So if those things aren't going to happen, again, we're not trying to get them to be the valedictorian of the offensive class. We're just trying to get them to pass.
Yeah, no, just be able to be respectable, move the ball a little bit. And you look back, and Dave Archer brought this up today on the segment I was with he and Ari. Baylor averaged like 160-plus yards rushing in 2019. They didn't get to 100 yards a game last year. There was a game or two, but I'm talking about on average. Over 9 games, they did not average over 90-plus yards per game. That's 70 yards for them. Can you imagine a couple of games if they would have just had a couple of games with 65 or 70 more yards rushing? Because they couldn't run the ball. And then on top of that, they also couldn't protect and they couldn't throw the ball deep. They didn't have any way to spread the defense. It was just a nightmare across the board. So my other question is this. Of the 4 transfers that appear to be starters or should be or most likely will be, Jacob Gall, right now, probably penciled in as a center, depending on everything else, could be a guard, Buffalo. Drew Estrada from Dartmouth, the inside slot receiver. Maybe also, who knows, maybe a part of the kick return game or punt return game, along with, of course, Ebner's got that job. Grant Miller, Vanderbilt, offensive lineman. And Siaka Ika, Apu, the defensive lineman, nose tackle from LSU. Which of those 4?
Miller was here last year, though.
Was he?
Wasn't he?
No.
He wasn't here last year?
No, because we had him on Skype here in the studio.
Yeah, he made the decision on our show.
Okay.
Yeah. He was in Florida at the time. Yeah. So those are 4 who appear to be possible or will start. Which of those 4, and I know who might be the most popular pick, but which of those 4 might have the biggest, most positive impact on this year's team?
Jacob Gall. Like, I know Apu Ika, everybody's excited about him, and he might have a heck of an impact. But if Jacob Gall can stabilize the middle of the offensive line, and that was something that, it wasn't necessarily the tackles just getting blown by last year. It was it didn't matter who was rushing the passer. If they were lined up over the center, the guards, or the tackle, they were getting back to Charlie Brewer. I mean, they were just going to be back there every time. And if they can slow that down, that's going to be an immeasurably important thing. So, yeah, I would think it'd be Jacob Gall.
Yeah, probably Jacob Gall, and yeah, I was thinking of somebody else, not Graham Miller, because he did get here after the semester. But yeah,
last year was a kid from UCLA.
Yeah, Jake Burden.
Yeah,
yeah, I'd say Jacob Gall. I mean, I will say the one thing, if you want to point out why they're not going to win 6 games or whatever, if the O-line is anywhere near what it was last year, I don't care who the quarterback is.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to talk about Jacob Zeno's 2 completions against Oklahoma, and, what did he do the rest of that time? He ran around for his life. He panicked. He had no idea what to do because he was getting, guys running at him from all sides, just like Charlie had every single Saturday for 4 years. So if that's still going to be the case, where it's just the ball's hiked and everybody just runs to the quarterback, then yeah, no, that will throw a wrench in some things. So, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Eric Mateos is going to do a good job of getting these guys at the best level that they can possibly be. I think he seems to be pretty no-nonsense, and I don't think he's going to accept the performance that we saw last year. I think if those guys roll out there and they perform the way they did last year, then we're going to see a lot of true freshman offensive linemen out there, and I'd be all for it because no one on this O-line who's been here for 4 years has any excuse to not be executing their job at this point. Coaching changes, I don't care. Like, you've learned enough from enough people to be able to execute your job if you're a senior at this point. And if you can't do it, then get out of the way and put a young guy in there because it can't get any worse.
Here's their job. You see that guy over there? Don't let him hit the quarterback.
Yeah. All right, a couple of baseball draft